Is it allowed, according to Jewish law, to swap hostages for terrorists? Many of you might know that Jews value life more than almost anything. So much so that we have a law in Judaism called Pekuach Nefesh, which means when a life is in danger. And when a life is in danger, the Torah is suspended. This comes from a verse in the Torah that says, "These are the laws that you might live by them," meaning that you will not die by them. Now there is 3 exceptions to this rule of Pekuach Nefesh, when life is in danger. And that is murder, meaning if someone asks us to murder someone to save our own life, we cannot do such a thing. The second exception is sexual immorality. If someone asks us to commit a sexual sin, then we should rather give our life than do such a thing. And the last one is idol worship. We should rather give our life as Jews than to worship idols. We also have another law in Judaism. It's actually a positive commandment for us as Jews to redeem someone that has been captured. And there is also a clear verse of this in the Torah. So with these 2 points mentioned, we could say that we then have a very strong argument to release hostages in exchange for terrorists, even though we all know it's a terrible situation. The problem with this, though, is that we will be saving Jews now when we release our hostages, but we might be putting a lot more Jews in danger in the future. So what takes precedence? Is it saving the hostages that we can save right now and worry about the terrorists and what they might do in the future? Or do we say no, we cannot put life in danger in the future? Luckily for all of you, Rabbi Breitowitz has already answered this question, quoting some of the leading poskim, big rabbis that makes halachic decisions for our generation. Have a listen what he says on this topic.
This is a huge, huge problem. Indeed, I have, shiurim on it that go for several hours, so we don't have time to cover everything right now. As you correctly note, this is not the first time we faced this problem. We had this issue with Gilad Shalit. Although Gilad Shalit, quite literally, 1,000 terrorists were released in exchange for him. It was 1,000 to 1. Here, Hamas is very, very generous. The Shayel always is, on one hand, pidyon shvuyin, ransoming captives, a great mitzvah. You even sell a Sefer Torah for pidyon shvuyin. You sell a shul. You do whatever you can. Pikuach nefesh, saving people whose lives are endangered every single second. So, of course, your initial reaction might be, we have to do whatever we can to save these lives. But the problem is, by releasing terrorists back into either our population, like in Gilad Shalit, or back to Hamas, or whatever it would be, what you're doing is you're creating dangers for other Jews. In the Gilad Shalit case itself, we already know that at least one of the terrorists who was released in that deal was very instrumental in planning the October 7 massacre. So the question becomes, are we obligated, or are we even permitted, to save lives in a way that may endanger future lives of even a larger number? So this is a huge machlokas. It's actually based on a Mishnah in Gittin. The Mishnah in Gittin says that we do not ransom hostages for more than their economic value as slaves. We don't pay exorbitant ransoms, lest we encourage more hostage taking in the future. And in this case, you have 2 ideas. Number one, you're encouraging hostage taking if they could get released, and number 2, you're actually creating a danger in the release of the terrorists. See, there are 2 different points here. One is you're encouraging further hostage takings because they get something out of it. Number two, you're endangering the population by the release of the terrorists. So the simple meaning of the Mishnah in Gittin would be this would be forbidden. However, Tosfos brings a shita that the whole Mishnah is only talking about a kidnapped victim whose life is not in danger. But when it comes to pikuach nefesh, we have to look at the people who are presently in danger, because they're in vadai sakana, and the future population is only a suffix sakana, and the vadai trumps the suffix, and the whole Mishnah is only talking about kidnappings that do not involve pikuach nefesh. Now, the Ramban explicitly argues, and he says, it's a davar pashut, that even if the hostages have to die, you don't endanger the future populations by releasing terrorists or giving into ransom. So it's a huge machlokes, and all I can tell you is that contemporary Gedolim were divided over this very issue. Rav Yosef wrote a famous tshuva going all the way back to Entebbe. Now, Entebbe, at the end of the day, did not involve terrorist exchanges. Entebbe had the raid, but the government was contemplating. Maybe it was just strategically, they were just saying they were doing it. And Rav Vadya was asked, and Rav Vadya said it was mutter because pikuach nefesh overrides the chashash. In other words, present vadai sakana overrides the speculation of future sakana, because after all, maybe the terrorists will be disabled, maybe they'll die, etc. So it's only a suffix. So you got to deal with the vadai over the suffix. And Rav Ovadia writes that Rav Yashiv was maskim. I don't think we have a tshuva from Rav Yashiv, but Rav Yashiv was maskim to this. Other Gedolim were against it. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky said you can't do that because you're endangering a population, and you cannot do that. So it is a huge machlokas. Now, I will say one thing. I do think that on one level, this type of hostage deal might be a little more acceptable halachically than the Gilad Shalit thing, because the point is, we're releasing the terrorists back to Hamas, but then we're going to continue the war. Meaning, in the case of Gilad Shalit, the problem was you're releasing these 1,000 people, and there's no active war going on to eradicate them, so they're going to just go back and do the terrorism again. Here, maybe that's less of a concern, because Israel is going to be resuming the war. I mean, in a way, it almost sounds kind of stupid, meaning, we're going to give you back your people, then we're going to try to kill them. Okay, but that's what it is. So it could be when you're in the middle of an ongoing conflict, maybe there's more of a heter for that reason. But again, according to Rav Ovadia and Rav Yashiv, even the Gilad Shalit thing was mutter, because he was in Vadai Sakana, and Vadai Sakana overrules the suffix sakana that you're putting people into. Okay, so it was a little confusing, I understand, but from a human and emotional level, this is an excruciatingly difficult decision. It really is, because what do you tell a parent of someone, their child is a captive? What do you tell them, or their parents, or their children, or their siblings? According to some poskim, the answer is, if they have to die, they have to die, because we can't endanger the war effort. But other poskim do allow it. They say Rabbi Yashiv allowed it, Rabbi Ovadia allowed it. One thing that really, it rips my heart every time I hear it, is just to imagine what the hostages are going through. When they found the body of, I think it was an 8-year-old, a young girl. So the father's reaction is, Baruch Hashem that she's dead, because at least I know she's not going to be abused. So that's how bad it was, in which you were grateful that the person, your child, was dead, because at least they're not going through something even worse. So we have to really understand how difficult this situation is, how tragic this situation is. And therefore, it's understandable why the poskim looked for ways in which we could try to secure their release, even though it creates a real problem that you've identified.
If you have any other Jewish questions that you would like me to make a video about, please write your question in the comment section below, and who knows, maybe my next video will be answering your question. If you have more burning Jewish questions, then luckily for all of you, I have already made a playlist of many Jewish questions that is commonly asked, which you can watch here next. Thanks for watching and Yom Tov.